Hello and welcome to Tech24 on France 24. I'm James Creedon. Coming up on this week's show, vehicle sharing services have revolutionised urban transport over the past decade, but schemes such as Paris's Vélib city bike system are fast becoming challenged by so-called free-floating vehicles. We'll take a look at the latest innovations. And we talk to the CEO of Txfy, a ride-hailing app that is snapping at the heels of giants like Uber. Thanks for watching. Now, first up, we take a look at the dangers posed by drones. Now, a recent alleged attack on the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, using commercial drones has highlighted just how risky this new technology can be. But those risks have provided a boost for a new range of companies offering drone protection. They're trying to keep a step ahead of those planning to use unmanned aerial vehicles for criminal purposes. Take a look at this report.
A moment of confusion, then soldiers flee in panic, and Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, is surrounded by bodyguards. The government says this was an attack by drones carrying explosives. This would be the first such political attack, but drones have previously crashed on the White House lawn and on stage next to Angela Merkel. With concern growing that commercial drones could become a weapon for terrorists, a number of startups are now offering anti-drone technology. This simulation by UK company Drone Defence shows how a jamming device can disrupt wireless signals for the drone's control and video feeds.
As the drone becomes a threat and the security operative believes that the drone's a threat, they can apply the effect. And you can see instantly the aircraft disconnects.
Devices can also be installed to form an invisible barrier. As the drone approaches, it loses its wireless connection and automatically heads back to its launch location. As drones proliferate, so does the list of potential clients.
Prisons, airports, governments are all looking for counter-drone technology. But the really key emerging markets now are high net worths and people who really want to protect their privacy.
Consumer-level drones have already been used on the battlefields of Syria. These rebels deployed them for reconnaissance, but Islamic State group have modified consumer drones to drop grenades. While basic drones like this aren't currently a major threat, advances in artificial intelligence could change that.
The point where you can get away from the operator controlling something remotely to something that can potentially seek out and autonomously follow and potentially then attack an individual, then you can start releasing large numbers of them as a sort of hostile actor. And it becomes much more difficult to deal with.
Other anti-drone measures include experiments by the Dutch police in the use of trained eagles. This programme has since been dropped, but with drone technology quickly evolving, the race to perfect drone defence systems is still on.
Now, the city of Paris has been at the forefront of the vehicle sharing concept over the past 10 years. It started with Vélib, one of the first city bike systems in the world. Then came Autolib, same concept for cars. But now there's been an evolution of the concept towards the so-called free-floating system of sharing vehicles. And Dhananjay Kadalkar is entering the studio, gliding along on a vehicle called a bird. It's a scooter. You'll explain more about that later. Tell us first, Dhananjay, though, about free-floating. What is free-floating? It's where you don't dock the vehicle, right?
Well, a free-floating concept is that in which there's no involvement of docking stations.
Yes.
Like the examples you mentioned, Vélib, Vélib Metropole and Autolib, they had a network of stations, so that was the core. But in the case of this e-scooter, which is made by the American startup Bird, you can have it from wherever you want, whenever you want, use it.
I see them all over Paris. I mean, there's bikes, scooters I hadn't seen up to now.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons why the free-floating concept is picking up in Paris, I think, is because of what maybe recently happened to Vélib.
Vélib, disaster.
Yeah, the new version, the Vélib Metropole, has been struggling in its operations, and even Autolib, it ended its operations in July. So it's no surprise that there are so many players now in Paris, starting with City Scoot, the electric scooter.
So they were coming in to fill the void of basically a crashing Vélib system.
Yeah, some of them were already there, but now more and more players are joining in. So Renault will be launching the electric car sharing system in September. And of course, you have these two American startups, Bird and Lime.
Okay, so tell us about this scooter. That's called Bird. It's one of these sort of vehicle, free-floating.
Absolutely.
So somebody can leave it anywhere in the city and another person picks it up if they have the app.
Absolutely. So you use an application. You, for example, you are in the 15th arrondissement of Paris. You want to know if there are these scooters next to you. So you just check on the app. If you find one, you go there. There's a barcode here. So you unlock it by using the app, and then you are ready to go. So, but I think it's slightly on the expensive side because just to unlock, you pay €1 and then you pay 15 cents every minute.
Oh, wow, okay.
So for an hour of ride, that will be 9 hours. But then that's not, I don't think that's the primary source of transportation. It's like maybe the idea is to cover the last mile of transportation. So if you get off a bus or you get off a metro and you want to cover that last mile, which may last for, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes using the electric power of these trottinettes or e-scooters, then maybe it's convenient and it's affordable as well.
All right, well, certainly we're seeing more and more of those options around Paris. Now, Lime or Bird, the two that we mentioned, might soon have another challenger, the Estonian unicorn Txfy, spelled Txfy in France for legal reasons. Now, that company is working on launching an electric scooter service in Paris. The application has been in the spotlight over the past few months, receiving important investments from the Chinese mobility operator Didi and the German automotive giant Daimler. Now, operating in 25 countries and 50 cities, Txfy hopes to be at the forefront of the vehicle sharing economy. Now, to learn more about it, I'm joined from Tallinn, Estonia, by the CEO of Txfy, Markus Vélib. Hi, Markus.
Hello.
Now, it's great to have you on the show. You've managed to become a serious competitor to other mobility apps, including Uber, since your launch 5 years ago. How do you cope with such huge competition, and is there room for everyone on the market?
It's definitely a big challenge to go against the big Silicon Valley giants in any industry, and especially in ride-hailing, where it's very competitive. The main reason for our success has been that we're just very focused on being the best platform for drivers. What we see is that in many of the cities, and especially in France, the drivers have been very unhappy with the offering from other platforms, and that's a place where we're really setting ourselves apart and offering them better service and better earnings.
Services and apps such as yours are reshaping the future of mobility. How far can we push the integration of different modes of transportation, mixing and matching, say, cars with electric scooters, as we saw earlier, and public transportation?
We see that in the future, it's getting obvious that people don't want to buy cars and deal with all the hassle that comes with maintaining them. And more people actually want to use a really convenient service, one where you can just travel to the place where you need using whatever is the best vehicle at the time. So that might mean that you start off your trip with an electric scooter, then halfway during the trip you can onboard the car or use public transportation, and over the next years we'll see all of those transportation methods merge together, and we believe that we will be one of the main platforms driving that change across Europe.
Now, maps and data are a central part of the services that you provide. What are your plans for innovating in that domain?
Maps is one of the most critical components we have in the business, and I think that's one of the main differences that sets apart the platforms who will be winning in this space and ones that just cannot compete and offer the best service for customers. So in terms of maps, there's many things we're doing. Everything from building out our own real-time traffic solutions so we can very easily predict which routes are the best for drivers to take and how fast the car will get to you, for example. But also dealing with other areas like figuring out what are the best pickup spots that to recommend to the user. So in the future, we want to have a service where we can recommend to the user that if you walk a few hundred meters, you're able to save a couple of euros from the ride, for example. So the people would have different options. And mapping overall is a critical part of that.
Now, Markus, you're just 24 years old and you've already done all of this, setting up Txfy. What is your biggest dream for Txfy in the coming years? What's next?
I mainly see that Europe is still very much behind the US when it comes to the tech space. And I really hope that Txfy can be one of the first big companies to actually challenge the US champions and show that you can build a great tech company from Europe as well.
All right, Marcus, thanks so much for talking to us on France 24. And now it's time for Test 24. So Dan and Jay, you were gliding around on a bird earlier, and you're determined to take flight, and somehow these shoes explain more.
It's a
help you to fly. Right.
It's a flyboard. Normally, you need a water body to enjoy the experience of flying using this device. But I think our set is blue enough to imagine that we can fly.
Sort of an aquatic vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does this work? Essentially, as you can see here, this flyboard is tethered to a personal watercraft or a jet ski using a 55 feet long hose.
Right.
Now that jet ski or the watercraft, it sends water with tremendous force through the hose, and as it reaches here, it gets split into two parts. As you can see, there are two nozzles, and the thrust that is generated by this by the exit of this water, it gives you the lift, and that's how you have this sensation of flying above water. Now you can do multiple things with it. You can do flips. You can go underwater.
So is it a little bit like a kind of a skateboard type thing that will? You have to balance on it
Absolutely.
as you would on a skateboard or something
right.
like that.
You can control your movements using your using the movement of your knees, for example. So if you bend on one side, it will bend that way, and vice versa.
And every so often you take off.
Absolutely.
And
it depends on the thrust, and that thrust can either be controlled by the person on the jet ski or the watercraft, or it can be controlled by you. So normally, if you want to control the thrust, you have to be at an advanced stage.
And this is something similar?
It uses the same principle. It's a hoverboard.
Right.
So instead of lifting up, it goes ahead. As you can see here, there's also
same idea.
Yeah, there's a space for a hose, and the same company, whose founder is Frankie Zapata, who is the world champion of jet skiing. He has also invented a flyboard air, so you don't need any water body to fly. There are 4 turbo engines, each generating 250 horsepower, and you just there's a board with 4 engines underneath, and you carry a backpack with jet fuel in it.
Oh my God!
So the fuel is then sent to this engine, and that's how you fly.
This is the future of fun,
yes.
Right? Fantastic. Thanks, Dan and Jay.
And before we end, we should thank the Manche Jet Club in Normandy, who were kind enough to lend this set to us.
Fantastic. Thanks to them, and thanks for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24.